Welcome back. You're listening to Houston Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Shannon Register, and every week we bring you news and information you can use on your next real estate transaction. And with most real estate transactions, you got to get a little insurance. So we are talking with our favorite insurance guy here, Tim O'Neill with State Farm. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We've had you on the show before. You always give us great information. You've helped me with a lot of insurance.
Thank you for that.
We like the information you give us, and I know that right now, going into spring, there's going to be some claims out there, don't you think?
Yes, springtime, the hail will fall, and the wind will blow, and the floods will come, and just as soon as we get over allergy season, then comes hail season.
Yes, yellow pollen on everything right now, and then hail season. Okay, so tell us about, let's talk about this, because a lot of people in Houston, over the years, working in real estate, I've seen a lot of people get new roofs because of the hail damage. So let's talk about that.
Sure.
Because everybody wants a new roof for free.
They do. And it's definitely a covered peril. Hail damage to your real estate property, to your roof and siding and your pool decking and everything else out there is covered for the peril of hail. And the way it works is hail is usually associated with wind. Very rarely do you see hail fall straight down. And when that happens, you have the potential for, let's say, half of the roof to be severely damaged by hail, and the exposure that wasn't facing the onslaught, let's say, could be much less damaged.
So if you have hail at your house, should you call your insurance agent, no matter what, to come look and see if there was damage?
You should, because two reasons. The inspection is free as part of the service, and we're happy to do that. So there's no question about that. And the other fear sometimes that consumers have is that, oh no, if I turn in a claim, my rates will go up and there'll be all sorts of consequences. But particularly with weather-related claims, that's not true. So there's no underwriting impact for wind or hail.
Doesn't make your policy go up.
It doesn't make your policy go up, but understand, we're all in this together. So if you live in a hail-prone area, or if you live in Tornado Alley, everyone's rates are going to be higher because that's where the money comes from to pay those claims. So there's definitely a rate impact, but not a personal one.
Okay, so if I have hail damage, I call State Farm out, come check it out, see what kind of damage I had on my roof. They come out and look at it, and they find that there was no hail damage, but my neighbors on either side of me had hail damage, and they're getting their roofs replaced. How can I be sure, man? That just kind of leaves me with a bad feeling. Tell me about that.
Sure. Well, as you know, I spent many years as a claims adjuster.
That's what I love about you. You know all about this stuff.
Before I was an agent. And I spent many of those years on the catastrophe team and specialized in hail damage. And so adjusters in all companies get a fair amount of training for what to look for, what constitutes hail damage. And just understand, you're talking about basically an ice cube falling from the stratosphere and smacking into the roof surface. So that's going to leave a mark, typically. And so you're trained what to look for and understand what just happened here. And if it was very light, flaky, pea-size hail, then roofs are engineered to be outside for 25 and 30 years. That's what they're for. And so they have a certain tolerance. But like anything, the tolerance can be exceeded. And so if you have great big hailstorms banging down, then those shingles are going to be damaged. And a trained inspector will actually climb up on the roof. And our protocol, most insurance companies and industry-wide, is you have to climb up and visually and manually inspect a representative sample on each exposure. So if the house has all four directions,
each side of the roof,
you have to get on each one. And even if that means, rope and harness, we used to have to get out there with rope and harness and physically get out on that surface and look. And if we saw something, then we were to press on it and see, was this the result of a big ball of ice banging into that? Or is that a little bit of mildew or a little bit of, any number of other things it could be? So you actually get, and most adjusters will do that with the roofer of the customer's choice. So if you have a roofing consultant or whoever,
schedule it at the same time.
Adjusters are perfectly happy always to meet, and homeowners obviously welcome to come up on his or her own roof and see what's going on. Understanding though that roofs are not meant to be walked on. That's one thing they're not meant to have happen. So the fewer people walking on your roof, generally better.
Yeah.
But it's an open process, and everyone is free to come up there. And if they don't want to come up there, they're free to see the pictures.
Okay, so once you go up there, you determine whether there's damage or not. And if there is damage, you said you have to go on all the different parts of the roof that face different ways. So let's say half the roof is damaged and half the roof isn't damaged. Then
Right.
what happens?
Well, first of all, that's a valid assumption. That can happen because the directional nature of hail. It's almost always associated with
Could just
wind.
be one section of the roof.
And the wind is blowing and the hail is slamming in one direction. And so certain exposures are getting direct hits and other exposures are getting glancing hits or very little impact damage. And so historically, insurance policies, contracts are physical damage contracts. And so the policy can pay to fix what is damaged, but it doesn't necessarily extend to replacing non-damaged areas of a roof. So a homeowner's nightmare is, okay, the front half of my roof is damaged and therefore included in the claim, but there's no damage on the back half, and there's no claim payment for the back half. And
so now you replace half the roof for free, and now the other half doesn't match, and now the HOA is upset with you.
Exactly, but not for free. The customers paid for the insurance protection, and then the policy says to replace these damaged surface areas.
Yeah.
And then there's some common sense wiggle room. But if it's a black and white situation of damaged versus no damage, then sometimes there is a disappointing outcome for the customer, and then sometimes there is that HOA requirement that you can't have half and half roof.
Yeah.
And sometimes even if someone were willing and able to do that, well, they have a 12-year-old shingle model that's no longer made, and they can't get
match
close.
it.
They used to have big. This is getting kind of deep into it, but they used to, for a little period of time, shingles were metric. Remember back in the 70s when everything was going metric? Well, shingles were the same thing. They used to be a yard long, and then they made them a meter. And so you would get up on a roof and then realize, oh, there are metric shingles up here. And then they stopped making metric shingles when that whole thing, went away.
Yeah.
And so now you'd have people with metric shingles that couldn't make a repair and replacement. So that got into some interesting claim settlements as well.
So you could have, as a homeowner, you may get half the roof paid for and then have to pay for the other half yourself if the other half wasn't damaged.
That is right.
So that's something that people just need to read their policy and understand.
They do.
All right. So with wind and hail damage, is the deductible the same as it is, let's say, for like a break-in?
No, it's not. Most commonly, there are two separate classes of deductibles, and sometimes more. But most commonly, there's a freestanding deductible that applies just to windstorm, hurricane, and hail. Those type of claims, and then your other deductible applies to everything other than fire and theft and vandalism and water damage, all of that. And because where we live in South Texas, insurance is academically, insurance is supposed to be for the unpredictable and the unexpected and things that come up and bite you. But if we live in South Texas, then hail really isn't
Part of life.
Really, yeah. So to a certain extent, because it happens so much, there's a choice to be made between higher premium or higher deductible, because either way, it reduces the exposure and the math that the actuaries have to get into and the whole thing. So typically, on most homeowners policies sold today across Texas and in all carriers, you have what's called a 1%, 2%. It's 1% for other than windstorm, hurricane, and hail, and a double 2% deductible for claims associated with windstorm, hurricane, and hail.
All right. Tim O'Neill's with State Farm. His website is, give us your website.
It's www.281-358-4444.com.
And that is your phone number.
I made the phone number the website.
281-358-4444. Tim O'Neill with State Farm Insurance. You can find him online or give him a call at that number. And he can help you with any insurance, car insurance, homeowners insurance, boat insurance. He's got me tied up in insurance. I'm insurance covered by Tim O'Neill with State Farm. We'll be right back here on Houston Real Estate Radio. If you missed any of today's show, go online, HoustonRealEstateRadio.com, and like us on Facebook, because remember, we're trying to get up to 13,000 likes. We'll be right back.
you.